Welcome to Olivia's Blooms. If you are new to my channel, I'm gardening in Charlottesville, Virginia, Zone 7B. I'm a home gardener who loves growing my own cut flowers and home decor with a focus on sustainable, regenerative, and eco-friendly practices. But most importantly, I'm here to support, share with, and learn from other gardeners, so I hope you will join me in growing this amazing gardening community. Hey guys, welcome back to Olivia's Blooms. Today's project I'm really excited about, but if I'm being honest, I'm actually really nervous about. I'm going to be putting together my walk-in cooler for my small business. Now, if you watched my previous video about the small business I'm starting this year, you'll have seen that the walk-in cooler is my big investment. It's what I'm putting half the money that I set aside for this business for. And I'm sort of winging it a little bit in terms of I haven't seen anyone else use this exact method for building a walk-in cooler before. So I'm nervous, I hope it works. But I want to take you guys along with me because if it does work, this I think is a really economical way to build a walk-in cooler either outside or even in your basement or in your house somewhere for people that want to sell flowers on the side. And also I mentioned in my previous video that the reason I need this cooler is it's going to give me the flexibility that I need to be able to harvest just a few hours every day in a small space and cut the flowers that are ready at the time they're ready and store them away until I'm able to make bouquets at the end of the week. So I'm not having to do one big harvest, and I don't need tons and tons of flowers so that at any given time there's hundreds ready. I'm gonna take each flower as it's ready, harvest it, and then for those that store well, I'm gonna store them in the cooler until I'm gonna use them. So let me talk to you a little bit about what I'm gonna do. I am using Coolbot, and I did a lot of research about what I would need to do, what my options were. Coolbot has a lot of how-to guides and videos about how to do a walk-in cooler, either if you're gonna build a shed or if you're gonna retrofit an existing shed. And so I did some research as well. And what I found were some resin sheds that were pretty inexpensive on Wayfair. The one I picked is, I think, around 6 by 5 feet, and then about 7 feet tall. And it was only, I want to say it was about $500, and I'm going to go through all the numbers at the end. But what I wanted to see is, could I build this inexpensive resin shed and could I insulate it with the foam insulation board and use the cutout window? While not a typical window, could I fit an air conditioner in that window and use that as my walk-in cooler? So I've got the shed, I'm going to build it in my basement. And I've got a lot of room in my storage room. I'm gonna be able to give the air conditioner enough clearance, and I'm gonna see if I can insulate it well enough to use as my walk-in cooler. So I'm gonna take you guys along with me. I don't think this is gonna be an easy project. I picked one that I knew was gonna be a lot of manual labor, but not a ton of money. I probably could have bought a prefab wooden shed if I wanted to do this outside for more money, but because of my HOA restrictions as well, I'd have to match the siding exactly to my house, and I didn't want to deal with all that. So that's why I'm choosing a less expensive shed that comes in pieces that I can put together in my basement. So let's go start building this shed. That's step one, and then we're gonna insulate it, insert the air conditioner, and then we're gonna see how it goes. Okay guys, here are all the pieces to the shed. We're in my basement, and it's gonna take a few hours to put together. But the good news is that we could fit a very large shed, even though we are limited on the width of the door frames coming down to the staircase because this came in pieces. So let me show you where we're gonna be building it. So we're back in my basement, and if you've watched my videos before, you'll notice that we moved my seed starting equipment over here, and that's to make room in the back here. And this is where the cooler is going to go. So we're gonna start by building the shed right here. You can see the base, but we might have to break this up over a few days depending. Little sneak peek at our progress. Took us about an hour and 15 minutes to get to this point with 2 people. My husband's helping me. So far, pretty easy installation. I'm going to measure the bottom of the floor here to the window because the window AC unit is not going to be able to sit on this little slit here. So what we're going to do is stack up cinder blocks over on this side to make sure we have the right height for the air conditioner to sit on, and it will just go through the opening here but not actually rest on the opening. Hey guys, so I wanted to take a break here. I've been working on the walk-in cooler and just show you kind of what's going on and how I'm attempting to do this. So you can see the shed is built and I am cutting the insulation board to fit, and per Coolbot's instructions, I am starting with the floor, and then once that's in, I've glued that down just so it can dry while I'm cutting other pieces. And then I'm gonna work on this wall next. There are still some gaps in here that I'm gonna have to fill with extra. I should have extra little pieces, for example, like these trim pieces here. I'll probably cut a few of these down and stick them in there before I add the foam insulation, because I really don't want all these gaps and cracks in here. And it's a little challenging with the shape of this shed. And then here's the window where I'm going to be putting the AC unit. Let me take you around the other side here. And what I did was I measured from the floor to the edge of the window here, and I stacked up concrete blocks using 1, 2, 4, and 8-inch blocks. And I'm gonna set a vertical window AC unit here that is, I found a skinny one that should fit in between here, and I am gonna have to insulate the top because it's shorter than the top of the window. But I wanna try this and see if it works, because this is a really cost-effective way to make a walk-in cooler, especially for the amount of size it has. So I'm really interested, and fingers crossed, hoping that this works. And then I did wanna show you real quick, Coolbot recommended a RMAX, I think, insulation board that is R13. I could not find that anywhere. Even the RMAX website couldn't give me a recommendation for a retailer to get it at. But I did find this John's Manville company, and these are R8 for 1.5 inch. So that was the best and most affordable option I could find. So I got 14 of these, and I am just cutting them with a simple utility knife. It's not hard at all, and what I do is I cut the first piece and then I just lay down. So for example, this is the wall piece here that I cut and I measured, I put it inside, it fit. So I'm gonna lay this next piece down and I'm just gonna use this as the template, and I'm gonna cut 2 more because I'm going to need 3 of these to make the R25 value. And then once I have these cut to the right size, I am gluing them on, because if you can see, and sorry to be swinging you guys back and forth, but the walls of this shed, you can't really put a screw in. So I'm using an adhesive that is good for the type of plastic and paper and the plastic on the shed walls. So I just found this Liquid Nails Fuse It, and this is supposed to work on all the materials and surfaces that will be in the shed. So we'll see if this holds up well. I'm being very generous with it. I'm definitely gonna need to buy larger tubes of this though, because I'm already almost out of one bottle, a 9-ounce bottle, just doing the floor. So definitely gonna be going back to the hardware store today, but here's the progress, and I'll show you guys later once I've got more insulation up. Hey guys, we are now about a week and a half later. I had some issues getting an air conditioner here, but we finally have it. So I had to choose a very thin, tall one to fit the window, the existing window with the shed. I could have cut the walls of the shed, but to make things easier on my husband and I, we just chose a unique design. This is a Frigidaire, so it should be compatible with the Coolbot. So I am pausing my installation. We're going to install the air conditioner and the Coolbot. I got the Coolbot Pro down here. And then I'm gonna finish, once I have this properly installed and the Coolbot installed, I'm gonna finish the insulation process so that the air conditioner is in place and I can make sure that I seal up that top window and any other little cracks around. So I think this is gonna work, fingers crossed, because it's a really inexpensive way to do this. And I'm gonna get going setting up the Coolbot, and we'll update you guys once we start reinstalling the rest of the insulation. The Coolbot has been installed. That was so easy. I think it took me 10 minutes. The video was really helpful and clear, and the process itself was really easy. The Frigidaire was completely compatible, very fast and easy. So the next step that I'm gonna do is, you can see I started on the first layer of insulation but needed to stop because I really couldn't do this wall till I had the air conditioner in place. But now I'm gonna continue on with the very first layer of insulation. So I'm gonna insulate the whole shed in one layer of foam board. I messed up a little bit on the floor. I did all 3 pieces and glued them down before I re-watched the video and realized I'm supposed to do 1 layer at a time. I think it'll be okay. I'll just have to use some extra foam insulation on those cracks. But what I do is I lay up the board. So I have all of my pieces already cut for the whole shed. You can see this is a total mess down here, so I'm looking forward to having this finished. But I am going to go 1 layer of board at a time, glue it to the wall, spray any foam insulation in the cracks, tape it over with tape, and then move on to the next layer and do that 3 times until the whole shed has 3 layers of insulation on it. So a lot of work ahead of me. I'm gonna get cracking on this, and I will see you guys on the other side. Another quick tip: you want to make sure your skin is covered when you're using the foam insulation. So I have long sleeves and long pants. I did not cover my arms when I did this first section over here and got some foam insulation on my skin, and it definitely hurt. Was not pleasant. I also had some in my hair for about a week, so this stuff really sticks. That's why it's great for insulation, but definitely recommend covering yourself. And then I also have been wearing a mask just to make sure while I'm cutting the plastic insulation board and spraying the foam that I'm not inhaling any particles that I shouldn't be. So just a couple considerations when you're doing this. I'm also going to be wearing gloves so I don't get foam insulation on my hands. So the insulation is done, and it is not the cleanest job ever, but it seems to be working. What I decided to do was, even though these 2 doors both open up, let me back up. I'm going to keep this door closed and insulate it really well, and only use this door. One, that will help there be fewer seams in the walk-in cooler, but also it will ensure that I'm only letting out a little bit of air each time that I bring buckets of flowers in and out. And this will be plenty of space for me to be able to access the cooler. But you can see this is a lot of space, especially if I put some shelves in here. Now let me give you a peek at the air conditioning. It's falling. I need to tape it up. But the Coolbot, I have taped on the wall here. I didn't want to put holes in the insulation with the screws that came with it, and the tape is holding up fine so far. You can see I have the room temperature sensor hanging here, and I've got the fin sensor has pulled out, but it goes right here. Gotta reattach that. Because this air conditioner is attached here, I'm gonna have to leave the air conditioner cover on. But I've tested it out and it's working really well. And then here is the heater. And so the setup seems to be working fairly well. I am getting a little bit of temperature fluctuation. It'll cool down lower than I want, and then it goes higher than I want. But that is okay. I was reading about it, and I think once there's actually buckets of flowers in here, that should stabilize a little bit more. If it's still not completely stabilized, I might do some patchwork on the insulation, but it seems to be holding in the air pretty well. I did want to show you guys something that helped is I bought this, it's essentially adhesive foam for the edges of the door, and I noticed that made a huge difference. You can see it here. It adheres down at the bottom and it's flexible, but it creates a better seal between the edges of the door and the outside. And I found that once I added that, it helped the temperature fluctuations reduce a little bit. Here's a look at the air conditioning running with the Coolbot. I have set the air conditioner to the lowest setting, so it's on the cool setting, 60. And what I found was I actually needed to put the fan on low because this is a 10,000 BTU air conditioner. It's actually larger than I needed for this space. Coolbot recommended a 8,000, but I got 10,000 just to be extra sure I could get the space down to the temperature I needed, and hoping to run the fan low in the hopes that it will increase the humidity in here, which you really want when you are cooling and storing flowers. So just wanted to show you what that looked like all running. All right, so I'm finally done with this project, but I wanted to take you through some of the numbers, some of the lessons I learned, and just hopefully this will help some of you that are thinking of starting a cut flower business on the side, or you've already started one but you don't have a cooler yet. Is this a good option for you? So the total cost is around $2,300. And those expenses break out. The shed itself was about $500. The AC was also a little bit over $500. The Coolbot Pro, you don't have to go with the Pro, but I'm very anxious and I wanted to be able to see what was going on in my cooler at all times. That was with tax around $440. And the insulation and supplies was around $830. It might end up costing just a little bit more than that. I'm probably gonna go grab a couple more cans of spray foam insulation just to have on hand. But that supply cost was the rigid foam board, the spray can insulation, which I think I went through like 8 or 9 cans of that, which is way more than I anticipated. The Fuse It liquid nail construction adhesive, specifically for adhering the rigid foam boards to each other, and a bunch of HVAC tape. I think I went through 2 or 3 rolls. I probably overdid it on the HVAC tape, but I really wanted to make sure that worked. And then that foam insulation for around the door. So I think you could reduce the costs if you wanted in some ways. I don't think you're gonna find a much cheaper shed than around $500 unless you wanna go smaller. The AC actually should have been about $150 less. I ordered 2 different ACs and they both got lost in transit, which was so frustrating. So I ended up just buying one from Home Depot that was about $100 more just because I wanted to get it here so I could get this project started. But you could probably find an AC for closer to $400 if you wanted. And again, the Coolbot, you don't have to buy the Pro. You could save money on that. If I was gonna do this again, however, looking at how much I ended up spending on the supplies and the foam board, now I calculated that the foam board was actually gonna be less because R Max has a higher R value and is actually less expensive than most of the other rigid foam board out there that I found, but I could not find R Max anywhere. It was sold out everywhere that I was looking. So the foam board I bought was a little more expensive and I had to buy more of it because I had to do more layers because it was a lower R value. I had to buy 14 sheets of the board and I had to do 3 layers of it. So since I spent almost $900, if I was gonna go back, I would probably, for this type of shed with all the angles and the kind of unique spaces that it has, I think it would have been easier and only a couple $100s more to get a spray foam closed cell system. And Coolbot has a link to this on their site, where you just spray a layer of foam throughout the whole shed, let it dry, spray another layer, let it dry, spray another layer. It's more complicated in that you have to wear a mask and make sure the area is well ventilated, and you have to let that foam dry between each layer. But I think it would have been much simpler to get into all the cracks and make sure that shed was really well insulated. The reason I didn't go with that in the first place is I thought my supply cost was going to be more around $600, and when I calculated the spray foam system, how much that would cost, I think it was going to be $1,200 to $1,300. So I thought, let me try it and see if I can save myself a lot of money. But I think in the end it would have been easier and more efficient to use the spray system. So for those of you thinking of doing this, I would recommend seeing if you could buy an inexpensive resin shed, buy an AC with a window. So you want a shed that has a cutout window. Buy an AC that fits in that window. You could buy one that doesn't fit, but you'd have to do some sawing, and I don't want to deal with that. Buy your Coolbot, and then buy one of those spray foam kits, and you could probably do what I did for around $2,500, maybe a little bit more, and I think that would work even better than mine's working. So I mentioned mine is getting down to the temperature I need. It's just fluctuating a little bit. So I think I set my temperature to 38 degrees. It's getting down to, I want to say like 24, 25, and then going back up to around 42, 43 about every 20 minutes. And then the air conditioning kicks back on and goes back down. So I'm hoping that once I have actual flowers and water and the cooler's full, that will stabilize a little bit. I might end up trying to shore up the insulation around the door even a little bit better, because I don't want my flowers going down below freezing. I don't think that's going to be good for them. So I'm going to try and troubleshoot those, but I'd say for all intents and purposes, this worked. If I can't get that fluctuation down, what I'll probably do is just set it up more towards 40, 45 degrees. And so it'll probably then fluctuate between around 33, 34 up to maybe 50 degrees. And that fluctuation isn't terrible for storing flowers. It's not ideal, it's not a stable 38, but I think it'll still give me some extra vase life and extra flexibility. So I would call this a success. I hope that me sharing this with you gave you guys some ideas for if you want to try a cooler and have a big space to store flowers without spending $7,000, $8,000, $10,000. I think this is a really good way to do it, and if some of you try it, I would love to know how it works out for you, and if you have any tips for other folks that might be trying to do this. So thank you guys for joining me in this very stressful but very important project, and I cannot wait. I have all these seedlings, but I cannot wait to start bringing you pictures of fresh flowers. We're just 6-8 weeks away, so close. But I hope you enjoyed joining me with this project today as much as I did. Thank you. No, that math does not add up. What is the R value on this? Must be R9. Okay, this is happening while I'm filming. I think my cat wants to come in. Chase?